We know that they were talking about this counteroffensive for 6 months, 7 months. I want to know who was the mastermind of this counteroffensive. They were forcing Ukrainian to do this counteroffensive. They knew that the Ukrainian capability, they don't have air support. These Ukrainians are not alone. We have in the backyard, we have intelligence provided by Americans and British. But why they were suggesting to do this counteroffensive? This is just waste of weapons, waste of life, waste of everything.
I think if we go back to the Discord leaks, and I'm sure most of the audience are familiar with the briefing materials for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff dating from February and March that were released back in April or so, or whenever it was. And you go and you look, and this gets back to my question about the order of battle. And if you go through at least the ones that are readily available, the 60 pages or so that are readily available, the Washington Post, of course, over time leaked more, supposedly received more of these briefings and leaked them, but we couldn't see what the Post could see. And without that kind of transparency, I don't really trust what the Post puts out. But I think the initial tranche that came forward was pretty insightful in the sense that you saw, if you go through that, anyone who goes through that and reads them all, I don't think anyone's walking away with a coherent picture of what's occurring in Ukraine. And that was the information that's being presented to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right? So again, you can go through that and you can look at on different slides, different estimations of Russian battle capacity, military capacity, combat capability at the time, and it's incoherent. It doesn't add up. It contradicts each other. And of course, you've got a big asterisk on one of the pages that leads to a footnote that says this information comes from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. Essentially, to paraphrase it says, we don't trust it. We're going to do our own. And you're looking at, okay, so now you're looking at this information on the military estimate, how many tanks Russia has on the battlefield, et cetera. And you're telling the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff a year into this invasion that you don't trust the information you're providing to him. I mean, that tells a lot about the relationships. That tells a lot about how convoluted and how rotten and corrupt this whole thing is. I mean, so you're giving intelligence estimates to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that are cooked up, inaccurate, can't be trusted. And that game continues to go along. Right, because there's these relationships that go past or outweigh the elements of truth that are required to do your job well, to conduct good policy, to make plans for the future. So you look at that in that aspect, right, and you could see how then with just how mendacity underlies all this and the whole roots of this war, or just megalomania and commercial greed, basically, like so many other wars. But there's a mendacity to this war that really has gone above and beyond what we've seen in previous wars. I think a lot of that's got to do with social media, the way information is spread now, the way that psychological warfare has really been attenuated with this technology we have now to make it very effective and also very easy to do, or easier to do. But you look at that, and then that's how you get to this point of understanding how you could have this counteroffensive that was hyped, like you said, for 6 months. I mean, basically December, we started hearing about this thing, and how everyone involved supposedly now will say, oh, well, I knew it wasn't going to work. And anyone looking at it in any objective way would have said, there's no way this is going to work. And many of us who commentated on this are saying this is very, very doubtful, that it's going to work here, guys. And just being ignored, being told that you're, rattling off Kremlin talking points, etc. So you look at that and you see the horror of this. And then, of course, you connect it to what's occurred there. One, the suffering for the people of Ukraine, the losses. But then, two, also the willing destruction of the Ukrainian army and its limited resources to pursue this political objective. I won't even call it political objective. It's more political theater. Right. And so you look back and you say, how does this occur? And of course, you look at the mendacity of all the other American wars. Right. You go and you look back at Iraq, you look at Afghanistan, you look at Libya, you look at Syria. I mean, all those have very well documented truisms about the lives of those wars. that can't be contradicted or can't be ignored. And what has the American Congress ever done about that? Nothing. So why should we expect that you have a Pentagon, a State Department, a CIA, a National Security Council that is egging on and cheerleading for this doomed offensive? When they're very much the same people who were doing all the lying in Iraq and in Afghanistan and in Libya, and throughout all of Africa and Syria and Yemen, Pakistan, etc. Right. So that's not, I think, as certainly not as specific or certainly not as short as an answer as you probably wanted. But however, I think you have to take that step back and look at it. And once you see the whole system, you see the forest. You ignore the trees like Newland and Blinken and those folks. Look at the forest. Look back into the forest, right? Then you can understand, oh, of course, there's no way they weren't going to lie about something like this. There's no way something like this was going to be political theater. The idea of just expending tens of thousands of people and their families, destroying them, killing their futures for the sake, again, political theater, is par for the course.